right, what's going on, everybody? Thank you for watching, listening, subscribing. Today's episode 6 of the Blaklist podcast. Today's guests are a dynamic duo fighting addiction on the front lines. They travel nationwide, spreading awareness of illicit fentanyl. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Fiore and Andrea Thomas. So thank you guys for coming on.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for your platform, and thank you for the opportunity to come on here and just speak on what we're doing. Platforms like yours is, very important for the word to get out there and for people to hear it, different stories and things like that. So it's an honor to have both of us here and be able to speak with you.
And we love your take that everybody's story is important.
Exactly.
That really means a lot. That's how we feel too.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody from the most successful person down to the little guys like us, we all got a story to tell. That's why we do this. We do this for that, and if we could just spread hope to one person, that's all that matters at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you guys for coming on. You guys are definitely making an impact. You guys are grinding out there, doing a lot of traveling. So yeah, why don't you guys just kind of tell us who you are, kind of maybe a brief background, and we'll go from there.
So I am Andrea Thomas, and I have a foundation called Voices for Awareness Foundation, and a project of that is Facing Fentanyl. Facing Fentanyl is a coalition of affected families and prevention organizations all over the United States. And recently we began working with the recovery community, and they are helping us so much share prevention and education about the dangers of illicit fentanyl. In 2018, I lost my daughter, Ashley, 32 years old, to a counterfeit pill made with fentanyl, a half of a pill. And so that's incredible to me that a half of a pill can kill someone. It didn't make sense then, and it still doesn't to me today, but started working prevention then, and just getting as much information as I could. And like most families impacted by fentanyl, most of us don't know and become experts down the road. And working with Michael on fentanyl prevention and seeing the recovery community back us like they have been. It's really inspiring. Before Michael, the majority of my work was seen, after the fact, when it's too late, when there's nothing we can do anymore. We've already lost those lives. And photo after photo, life story after life story. And now with the recovery community, we can see hope and just appreciate them sharing our message.
Yeah, so I am Michael Fiore. I'm Director of Outreach for Voices for Awareness, as well as the project Facing Fentanyl. Founder and CEO of Inspire to Inspire. The reason I call it Inspire to Inspire is a lot like why you have your podcast. We all have a story inside of us that can inspire somebody on their journey. In our stories line, what we overcome, not what we've done. So every story has this importance in somebody's life. A little brief background: 20 years of active addiction. 12 years on methadone, as high as 120 milligrams, successfully detoxed on November 3rd of 2021. Both my parents died of AIDS from heroin use, 2 grandmothers alcoholism, grandfather heroin, uncle heroin. So, the lived experience is there, not just through my own personal experience, but through how it affects, other people at the same time. For a long time, because of my environment and circumstances, I thought it was my destiny to follow in those footsteps. Coming out on the other end of this, I just realized that I'm being given the opportunity to actually break a generational curse. So for whoever is out there that's watching this or listening to this, and you have family members that are addicted, just know it doesn't have to be your story just because that's what you're around at the moment. We do have the power in us to overcome obstacles, I think, way bigger than we could ever imagine. Our collaboration has actually been a blessing from God at the least, right? Combining the families affected in the recovery community, when Andrea and I are doing our collaboration, is not being done across the nation. And now people are picking up on it, which is great, because I think we need to work together, right? How often does the addict of a family lose their family members because of all the bridges that they burn and things like that. So we're actually showing, like, we can work together, because fentanyl is not a black or white problem. It's not a red or blue problem. It has nothing to do with anything. It does not discriminate. It's a humanity problem. So I think everybody needs to get on board with it. So that's what the Facing Fentanyl Now project is. It's the families affected. It's the recovery community. We have clothing lines that are part of it. We got human trafficking nonprofits, domestic violence nonprofits, legislate. Like, we're trying to bring it all together because we trying to become one voice, right? We are the population. When we all could come together, because drugs don't discriminate, they just don't. So we shouldn't discriminate because of petty differences, because of anything, right? So our collaboration is so powerful and it's working so well because we're willing to listen. However you're doing it, fine. Come on board and help us make more of this by the way you're doing it. Because if you think about building a basketball team of anything like that, you don't get 5 of the same players. You don't have 5 shooters. You got a defender, you got a defensive guy, you got a fast guy, you got a shooter. We need people that are going to complement each other rather than all be the same. So this way we can bring different perspectives into it, because when we bring different perspectives and be able to have a conversation rather than an argument, right? Difference of opinions does not mean that we need to have an argument. Difference of opinions can be that we can still learn from each other. And people in recovery know how important it is to be open-minded, right? If you're not open-minded and willing to try new things, you're not going to make any kind of change. So, us working together has been a blessing. I lost my mother, right, to addiction. Andrea has now became a mother to me. My mother was my best friend. She's my best friend. We do all this traveling, the laughs, the jokes, and being able to speak to these kids, I think, is the greatest gift that I've been able to get from my addiction, be able to share that lived experience and hopefully prevent them going down a road that I went.
Wow, and this right here, it actually is very near and dear to me because my drug of choice was fentanyl, and I'm 4.5 years sober, and by the grace of God, but it's like, I knew what I was putting in my body. I knew what it was, and I was playing with death every day. And like you said, there's people, half a pill, people are dying from half a pill. And it's hard to wrap your mind around, to think that, but not only let alone the people that know what they're putting in their body, but the ones that don't. And so this means a lot to me just because that's, since that was my drug of choice.
Well, I thank God you're here, right? That you're with us, because as well as we do that sometimes with fentanyl, there's no second chance, right?
Yep.
Recovery is slim. It's affecting all populations, young and old. There's it's the unsuspecting or somebody that knew what they were using, or somebody experimenting. All these lives are important. And it's just a drug like no other. And what I found in the work that we do, because, I'm a fentanyl mom, right? I came in this cycle of drugs. So many families out there fighting for years and years, right? Like the IOD families, right? They lost kids to other drugs. And what's different about fentanyl, though, is it's taking out people that really weren't active users. They were just experimenting or maybe unsuspecting because of the deception of the drug coming in these counterfeit pills, right? Everything's changed. But certainly there's been people out there fighting way before we came along, right? And trying to make a difference. It's just this perfect storm that brought fentanyl to the forefront. And now we're seeing xylazine, the next drug, that's doing, just awful things. We can't even reverse it with naloxone. So we really need everybody on board, right? All the voices to make a difference, because I think all of us have something to contribute to this, like Michael was saying. And I thought before I met the recovery community, I thought, well, affected families are the strongest people I've ever met in my life. They've gone through the worst of the worst, losing their child or their loved one, and continue to advocate and use every resource and every bit of their time that they have in most cases. And then I met so many people in the recovery community, and they put all of their heart and soul into recovery. It's a 24/7 job, to be in recovery, from what I understand. And so these two groups working together is amazing to me. We've just seen so much progress and learned so much more of each other.
And
yeah.
so, and Andrea was saying, it's, the people that are dying are mostly the recreational user, the first time user, people like you and I, we got the tolerance, right? So the lethal dose is 2 milligrams, but not for an addict, right? Our tolerance is so high. Like yourself, you actually were out there looking for the fentanyl, right? That was your drug of choice because our tolerance is so high. I think one of the reasons why, this misconception of some people not realizing how deadly fentanyl is, because it is 50 to 100 times stronger than anything we ever seen, is because they're using the word overdose, right? The word overdose means the excessive use of drugs. Somebody like me that was a heroin addict can overdose if we use too much of it, right? So therefore, there was an amount that you could use and not have to worry about. There is no safe dose when it comes to fentanyl, especially for these kids. So saying the word overdose, if I'm a teenager, I'm taking one pill, I'm not going to think I'm going to overdose. You know what I'm saying? Or if I'm a recreational user that just uses a little bit on the weekend, I'm not thinking I'm going to overdose, because that word has such a stigma to it, dealing with heroin addicts, right? Shooting up. I'm not even shooting up drugs. I'm just popping a pill. So it's not an overdose. It's a poisoning, because a little bit of poison will kill somebody.
And people get so aggravated with us saying, there's no safe dose. How can there be a safe dose if it takes, if as little as 2 milligrams can take your life, potentially sudden death, like onset right then. Or your other choices, you live, and it's so highly addictive, you can't stop, right? So in our opinion, there is no safe dose. It's either or. And I've talked to a lot of people that are using, and they tell me that it's such the withdrawal is so much more catastrophic than even detoxing from heroin. And I don't know. I don't know what that's like, but that's what I've been told. And, their choice is to go with it through that withdrawal that's horrific, or just use again.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't wish a fentanyl withdrawal on my worst enemy, and I'll never forget those. I couldn't make it 24 hours before, and I wanted to quit so bad, but I couldn't. And that's just the way it is, and you're right. There is no safe dose. I agree 100% with that. I was told, I've been told I've overdosed, tech quote unquote overdosed, and I've had the ambulances, they tell me, and one day you're going to use and you're just going to go to sleep and you're never going to wake up again. And that still wasn't enough for me to stop, but eventually, something has to give. And I think the more that we're educated on it, the more, we'll see it. But right now it's just these kids in high school, going to a party, hey, I've had a Percocet before. I've had this before, not knowing what they're taking, and they're experimenting. And the next thing you know, they pass away from it.
And another reason why fentanyl is so deadly, right? It's so deceptive, right? Like you can't taste the difference. Like the pills don't taste any different than the real ones, right? The color of the pill, unless you have a real one and a fake one in your hand, you can't tell the difference between the M30s and anything like that. So the fact that it's so deceptive, like any pill you're picking up off the street is pressed. 6 out of 10, I think, are the statistics the DEA came out with, right? That are deadly. 6 out of 10 on the street. So if you're putting 10 on the floor, you got a 60% chance. That's too high. That's not even Russian roulette no more. That's like, that's like 4 bullets in a 5-chamber. It's gonna happen. So like the word laced, right? The word laced, the definition of it means the minority of. I think when fentanyl first came out, drugs were laced with fentanyl because it was so addictive. So let's get them hooked. Let's get them on there. Now I think it actually flipped. Now I think it's fentanyl laced with heroin, fentanyl laced with cocaine, fentanyl laced with Oxycontin. By saying the word lace, I think it also gives people this idea that maybe you will get the one that's not lace. Like I hear lace, I think icing on a cake.
Or, we say lace because it's put in after the fact a lot of times. These cartels, these transnational criminals, they're purposely making these pills.
Yep.
Fentanyl and other drugs, right? And now, of course, adding xylazine. And our youth is a key factor here, right? The social media issues with distributors reaching out to our youth on social media sites, e-commerce sites. COVID kind of turned all of that around, and our kids, went to that place where a lot of their time was spent in social media. So 77% of these deaths of teenagers, they encountered a situation on Snapchat, a distributor or dealer on Snapchat purchased these pills. And so we really have to look at that and work prevention. Michael and I, legislation is important to me, working with law enforcement for their needs to combat this situation and certainly recovery. But we don't have time to work all of that out. There's so much to fix now. So prevention is really important to us, and stopping it before it starts. And if we can reach these kids with in-person prevention, it seems like hopefully we can make the difference there.
Yeah. I mean, you're teaching me stuff on it that I didn't, and I was a user for a long time, and I didn't know even 60%, or 6 out of 10, I was using up to 20 a day, and so, and I know somebody, my brother, he was using up to 50 a day, no joke, the M's, and it's like, I'm learning stuff, and so it's like, wow, like just the fact that you're playing with death, literally, like Russian roulette,
Well, they really got us this time, didn't they? Because I know when Ashley first died in 2018, people that were using were telling us that they were using 3 or 4 pills a day. They were cutting them up and they'd last all day long. And then somewhere along the line, it seems like the composition changed, right? And we're talking to people now that are using 40, 50 pills a day, lasting 15 minutes at a time, no high, just nodding out and needing it once they wake back up. So the cartels are creative. They're good at what they do. And they're going to continue this until we get a handle on it here in the United States. And I think now we're becoming just as guilty. I feel like we're becoming just as criminal because our federal government has not addressed this with the strength that I believe they should, like they did COVID, right? That's all we knew, and that's all we've known for the last several years. Wash your hands, wear your mask. We knew all of that so soon into the COVID pandemic. But now people are just beginning to talk about fentanyl, and we've got xylazine on the horizon. It's right here. And we haven't even addressed the drug before.
Yeah, and I think that, and this is my personal opinion, it gets swept under the rug. Everybody wants to turn their heads. They don't want to deal with it until it happens to them, or, but that's the thing, like, especially with Congress and different things, like, it's like, it's not taken seriously. As look at, they've been hitting on COVID, like you said, for years. How come we can't do the same? And this new drug you're talking about, I've been out of the game for so long. This is the first time I've heard of it.
Oh, wow.
So
I haven't heard of it.
Do you want to tell them a little bit about Trank? Like, they're adding it to fentanyl, like as if fentanyl wasn't bad enough.
The scary thing with Trank is Narcan won't work for it. Naloxone won't work for it. So if you do use too much of it, get poisoned by it, we can't bring you back to life. At least right now with fentanyl, some people get shot multiple times with it, but at least they're getting the opportunity to come back. With xylazine, you're not coming back. And it's, the people that are using it, IV, intravenous, are like losing limbs, it's causing, what is it that is causing?
It's abscessing and they're becoming infected, and they've got these open wounds, and in some communities it's so prevalent They're comparing these users to people that are zombie-like. And
So what's like the compound of this? What is it made up of? Do you know?
it's a it's a tranquilizer,
Horse
an
tranquilizer.
animal tranquilizer. And before, we were seeing people added in the United States to their drugs here and there. We'd heard of it quite some time ago, or I had. And now the DEA tells us that the cartels are sending it our way with the xylazine already in it. You know, there's so many analogs out there and so many different chemicals. These synthetic drugs are just going to keep amping up.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine what's worse than what we already have.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I say it all the time. You know, something's not your problem until it becomes your problem. And then when it becomes your problem, you're wondering why nothing was being done about the problem. So before fentanyl or xylazine becomes your problem, becomes part of the solution, being part of the solution is just getting your awareness up, learning about it, telling somebody about it, having that person tell somebody. You know, whoever's watching this or listening, go to facingfentanylnow.org. And on there, you will get all the information you need of things that are, you know, going on or stuff like that. Because fentanyl did change the landscape of the drug game, right? Like you and I have to call a dealer, go meet the dealer comes to our house, or we go to a place to pick it up. With Snapchat and these other social media platforms, like these kids are walking with the cartel in their pocket. So you can live in the nice neighborhood with the security and everything like that, and it's going to get delivered to your doorstep like pizza. You know, like, so like we also now have to start holding them accountable too at the same time. But I sold drugs. When I cut my drugs, I did not cut it with a stronger agent. I cut it with a weaker agent to make more of it. The drugs are being cut with a stronger agent. Like the whole drug game has changed. Like there's, you know, I don't want to say it, but back in the day, there was some kind of loyalty to your customer. You know what I'm saying? Like a drug dealer, and that relationship was, you know, maybe not the best, but it wasn't what it is now. Like there's no way of you knowing if it has it in or not. It's getting stepped on. It's coming in that way. You know, addicts are doing it to support our habits, which is something that we do. Where they're buying pill press machines and they're pressing pills, and you know, like there is no wiggle room in this. Like the really the best way, because it's a weapon, but the only way a weapon could hurt you is if it's used, right? So fentanyl is a weapon, and it's not just any weapon. It's a weapon of mass destruction. Like people dying every 5 minutes. You know, like that's a weapon. It's a national security risk. You know, like we should be worrying about the war within our borders more than, you know, sending money to other countries and things like that. Because 9/11 happened. We were terrorized, right? We were terrorized on 9/11. The same amount of deaths that happened at 9/11, which is probably more now, right? Happens in this country every 2 weeks. We're being terrorized by the Mexican cartel, by, you know, China, all this kind of stuff. We're being terrorized, but yet nothing is happening. So the borders, will they shut down? Let's be honest, probably not, right? So since we can't wait for those things to happen, Andrea and I are trying to get as loud as we can with the other organizations that are working with us and other people out there doing the same thing we're doing, and just trying to bring it all together, because the louder we get, the more ears we will reach.
I agree 100%.
You'll hear impacted families say all the time, this isn't a red or blue issue, it's a red, white, and blue issue. And they're exactly right. This shouldn't be a political play, what we're going to do with fentanyl, how we're going to address fentanyl. We back a lot of legislation, and very little of it passes. Very little of it is addressed. Sometimes hearing there's not even enough quorum in those rooms where these bills are presented to vote on them. It's as if they're purposely being passed up. And so what I've seen is within our families out there, you know, we have parents that are speaking with Congress, heading to the Supreme Court, taking every stand everywhere that they can. And many of us, we're not politicians, doctors, scientists. I mean, some of us are, but most of us are not. And we've taken these positions because we've learned so much about fentanyl. And this is what is starting to happen now in the recovery community too. That's what we want to see, is So when Michael sits at the table and he is with the senator and he's a year into his recovery and he's so knowledgeable on the subject, we all have a place there, those in recovery and certainly our families. And we need to keep pushing for that. We are the people. We can help make these decisions.
So what's a day in the life like for you guys when you're traveling, when you're not traveling?
So here's the thing. I run with my husband my family business, and when you have your own business, that's 24/7. My daughter Ashley had a 7-year-old son at the time that she passed, and so we raise our grandson. He's 13 now. He's a jewel. We homeschool him, and that's primarily because, well, first I'm scared of what's out there, right? Even in the schools. But he has the ability to travel with me when I'm out, working our foundations, and Michael has a really full plate. So together, working advocacy and getting into these schools and speaking all of these places, it's really just a hamster wheel, I guess. I'm not quite sure. I couldn't even explain to you how we do it all. In the last week, we've been to
about 6 states.
4 different places, but it's all worth it.
Flying, everything. Yeah,
you just make it work. And we have to.
So, I don't know how long we have on this podcast. So a day in life for me, I don't even know if we could get it out in a day, but I'll try my best. So of course it's, the Voices for Awareness, facing fentanyl prevention. I was on methadone for 12 years, so I'm 17 months, give or take, off of it. I don't sleep more than 3 hours in the night because of, 12 years of methadone. It's going to do that. So I guess it's a good thing that I'm up 18 hours a day because I get a lot done. But I'm one of the lead group facilitators in Orange County in treatment. So, I'm educating, people in treatment, and I bring a different perspective when it comes to recovery. My thing is our addiction has taught us how to be successful in recovery. I think it's easier to maneuver through life through the lessons of the past than trying to control the narrative of the uncertainty of the future, right? So I teach people the transferable skills that we could take from our addiction and apply into recovery. I remember my 30 treatment facilities. The reason I would never learn recovery is because I thought I needed to be taught to me. I don't think we needed to be taught. I think we already know how to do it if we could study our past, like study what got us to the drugs, all the transferable skills, the grit, the motivation, the determination, the critical thinking, the courage, everything that keeps us in addiction is the same thing that keeps us in the recovery. So going through all of that, I realized that there was only one thing I needed to change, not everything. I just needed to change my perspective. Right? How do I look at it? So I help bring a different perspective. I'm also the alumni coordinator. I do a lot of, outreach work and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, my addiction was 24/7, right? Addiction and recovery is the same thing as far as mindset, lifestyle, way of living. They both require those three things. Right. So it's just, the mindset, the lifestyle, the way of living has changed. But my movements as far as the effort into things is staying the same. Right. I still got the same effort I put into the drugs, into the recovery. But the recovery for me is more about working on myself, than it is the absence of a drug or a drink, So, we do a lot. At the end of the day, we're responsible for the effort, not the outcome. But my addiction has been a blessing. I'm able to talk to. So we're not the DARE program. All right. We're not going into these schools and we're not telling people don't do drugs. I tell myself don't do drugs. I'm going to think about doing drugs. Right. So what led me to drugs was, the loss of identity, right? The people pleasing, the validation, these kids are dealing with the same thing, but instead of in a schoolyard, they're dealing with it with social media, right? The views, followers, and likes was the same thing I did, but without social media, I did things for views, followers, and likes. So what you thought about me was more important than what I thought about myself. So I manipulated and lied. It's the same thing with social media. These kids are following trends. these kids, before they make a video or put out content, they're already thinking about how somebody else is going to perceive their content. So that loss of identity is what led me to drugs, because the drugs allow you to create an ego. That ego makes you think that you're somebody you're not, or you're okay with people believing things about you that's not true, as long as you think it gives you value. So like that's why our role as addicts in recovery, or even if you're using, you got a role in this, right? Like our role is so important to collaborate with people like Andrea and Voices for Awareness and Face for, because if we're not picking up the drug, if we're not using it, and we're not robbing for it, and we're not stealing it, those borders, even though they're never going to get closed, you can bring all the drugs you want in here, the demand will go down. And who better than someone that's lived through that darkness to be able to become a lamp in somebody else's darkness to get them through it, right? So our value in this is just as valuable as anybody else. If we can bring it all together, we'll really start to make a lot of change.
There's just so many pieces to this, right? Because when I'm listening to Michael talk about, if you're not buying the drug, then the drug is no good. And and that's a great part of it, right? And with fentanyl, we were seeing kids that were experimenting, not waking up in the morning, finding them in their bedrooms next to their parents' room, gone. And their parents had no clue how they even accessed these drugs. And so when everyone starts dying, and not just those that are actively using, wow, like where is our respect for human life that we aren't addressing this in the biggest way possible? First our youth, and then everybody else. This should be number one priority. At the top of the list. When I started doing this, of course, I started doing it for my child, right? I wanted answers. I wanted other people to know. I wanted to warn them. And then when I started learning about all of the others, and then of course now 5 years later, hundreds of thousands of people gone. How can you stop? How can you stop doing this?
Right. Do you know what the percentage of people that were first-time users that passed away from a fentanyl poisoning?
No, here's the thing with fentanyl. The data is the pits, right? It sucks, just flat out. The testing isn't, equal across the board. Testing is still being worked on as far as, you die. Is everyone getting fentanyl tested? That was a suspected overdose. My daughter, had the DEA not been in our area investigating other deaths that were related to the distributor that brought these pills into our area, my daughter would have just been looked at as an overdose, case closed. I would have never known anything. And there would not have been an investigation. Ashley was one of 10 that the DEA found to be related to one dealer. And he was recently prosecuted at the beginning of this year. But, those are lengthy processes. And so there are issues with people overdosing, getting poisoned, going into the ER, and they get revived, but complete testing isn't done. The panels aren't including, the opioid panels don't include fentanyl. They're special tests. Same with death certificates. They're not accurately being recorded as fentanyl deaths. So we have a long way to go. Our numbers, this 107,000 number that we keep referring to for the 2020-2021 year, that's got to be so far off. Incomplete reporting. It has to be much higher. And of course, we don't even have numbers now for the last year, which tells me that it's so bad they don't even want to put it out there.
Right.
Whoever they is, they don't want it out.
So what can the everyday person like us do to help? Like,
everyone can make a difference. Like I was telling you about these mothers, and fathers too, working in every capacity of prevention that they can. The smallest thing can make a difference. If you know something about fentanyl, share it. If you have a resource and you're and you're an affected family, or you're somebody that hasn't been affected yet, reach out to one of these organizations. They all do good work, and everybody's a little bit different. But we use our own resources, our own money. We're not funded by anyone. There are very few of us that have funding. We're certainly not funded by anybody except our own wallets. So these organizations need help. They do tremendous work with $0. And so if you don't have to have an organization, just share what you know. And if you do have resources that you can share, reach out to one of these organizations. I'm sure they could use you, and hook up with people that have lived experience, whether it's affected families or people in recovery or people that are using. All of them can contribute to this story and have answers.
And not just with, be resilient in your questions, right? Go to your town hall, go to your legislation, go to your local police department, go to your PTAs, go to the school district. Ask questions like, what are you guys doing as far as awareness and prevention? Who are you guys bringing in to teach? Be resilient with the questions. Don't just ask them one time and allow, we're getting to it. Come together as a community and go to your city hall and find out what's going on. If they're not doing nothing, put the pressure on people to realize, listen, we're not just going to let this go away, right? And have the uncomfortable conversation with your child, right? Because I say it all the time, my parents didn't have a conversation about sex with me. I still had sex, right? But when you have the conversation about having safe sex and the proper ways to do it, you could actually prevent, things from occurring. Have the uncomfortable conversation with your child. Let them know what's going on. Because these kids, I know we look at them as kids, but these kids are smart. You know what I'm saying? These kids can make the right choice for themselves. If we could give them the tools and let them know what's going on. And you might even be surprised. You might speak to your child about it, and they might even know more about it than you do because of social media, because of how much is being filtered through social media and things of that nature. So say what you do know, what you don't know, ask questions and keep asking questions. Depending on where you are, Andrea and I have resources nationwide. If it is something you want to get involved with, I'm pretty sure there's a family affected or there's a recovery community between the both of us that we could set you up with, that you could help spread awareness, prevention, get education, pass it on, but the main thing is, be resilient in everything that you do when it comes to fentanyl. Don't just, I did my ignorance is bliss. This is not going away by ignoring it. It's just not. And look where mental health in our country has gotten to because of the ignorance to it and the not addressing it.
And then there's faith.
We
just have a lot of faith. I don't think I'd be standing today if I didn't have all the faith 100%. That I have. I know I wouldn't be. And
we're all here for a reason. We've all been through what we've been through, and like you said, we all can make a difference. Doesn't matter how big or how little. Just something as simple as this podcast, putting, out you guys out there for more information, or sharing a post.
How valuable it is to us when you invite us to things like this, and we can reach another following, right? Your circle. Places we would have never reached before, because a lot of times we're preaching to the choir, right? That doesn't get us anywhere, and we need to get to that box. So we appreciate you so much.
Even the smallest pebble thrown into water still makes a ripple effect, right? So even if this is just one of them little pebbles, the ripple effect, there's still going to be something from it. And, that's what all we're trying to do. Like Andrea said, we're not getting paid for any of this, right? Like the schools and we're doing this because we're trying to prevent the pain that we went through. We both have different pain, but it's still pain. Pain's a universal language. We're all in recovery. Every person in this world is in some form of recovery through their pain, right? So all we're trying to do is we turned our pain into passion. That's what's pushing us is our pain. So if you're going through pain, there's a passion in there if you could overcome it. So that's another thing we're trying to show people. Andrea lost her daughter, right? And the next day, she couldn't even stay in bed. She had to figure out what was going on and started spreading awareness and prevention. I lost almost all my family. You know what I'm saying? I lost, a lot of years in my life, but now I'm turning that into a passion and just sharing with people what I've learned in this experience, the wisdom I've learned from my mistakes and my choices, and that's our duty to each other, is to just share what we know to the person and let them use it in the way they need to use it. You don't have to do it the way I'm doing it. You don't have to do the way Andrea's doing it, but you could see that something can be done through your pain, and you find your way through it, but just know it's possible. That's all we're trying to, get out there to people.
Yeah, no, what is, we'll put the links in the description, but just tell everybody what platform they can find you on, and just, any information.
So Voices for Awareness Foundation, voicesforawareness.com is my home organization. That's what I started after I lost Ashley, and then started Project Facing Fentanyl. So that's facingfentanylnow.org. And there's a lot of tools on there. We can list you as a supporter of fentanyl prevention there. So the people that follow us can find you on our supporter list and link directly to you. Those are, my two sites, and Michael is our communication outreach for both of those sites. He has made a world of difference. I can't work well with other people as far as that's strange to say because I work with a lot of organizations, but that can get me in the moment, right? Michael and I have clicked, and he's just bringing more resources and supporters in to this world. And he has such a big social media following and such an inspirational word that he's sharing. What are your social media
facingfentanylnow.org, like Andrea was saying. So Jared, you go to the website, you'll see an option to become a supporter. You become a supporter, the Blaklist podcast will be on there, and what you're supporting is our National Day. August 21st is National Fentanyl Awareness and Prevention Day, which is endorsed by the DEA. Last year it was a nationwide thing. This year it's going to be even bigger, because this year I've been given the great opportunity to be able to bring the recovery community and so many other organizations on board with it, because last year was really just the families affected, right? They billboards and everything. This year we're bringing everybody on. So our movement, the One Voice movement, we are the population. This year it's really going to be shown. We got, my church is involved. Every walk of life now is involved. And the beautiful thing about it is that we do live in a world with petty differences. When you see what's going to happen on August 21st, you're going to have all walks of life a part of this. So everyone that's listening, go to facingfentanylnow.org. If you have an organization, we also have an opiate reversal kit box that we're getting donated to schools and stuff like that. There's a link on there for you to see it. It has education. It has naloxone. So naloxone is the main ingredient, which is in Narcan, right? So naloxone is what brings people out. We work with a company called Cloxato. So Narcan is 4 milligrams. Cloxato is 8 milligrams, right? It's just a stronger dose, right? That's what's in our reversal kit box. There's education in the box. So all of that's on the site. When you have an opportunity, go to it. As far as my stuff goes, on Instagram, you just go to Mike Fiore, MikeFiore 118 at just 118. On there, there'll be the link to the TikTok. But if there's anyone looking to get involved, or you're in the recovery community, you want to get involved, or you're trying to get treatment, or you're trying to get resources, anything like that, DM me, you know what I'm saying? I get back to them as quickly as I possibly can. If I don't get back, I need the persistence though. We gotta keep going for the things we want, but I do always get back to people. So that's pretty much the quickest way. I gotta do the link tree like we were talking about. I gotta get a link tree up. It'll put everything in one place.
And there's just us, right? We've got a small team. It feels like a big team to me now, because it was just only me before working fentanyl prevention for my organization. And now we have several others, but still we don't have an administrative team. So sometimes it takes a bit. we've been traveling for 2 weeks. We're a little punchy right now,
Yeah.
and we're getting ready to travel some more over the weekend.
So to mention, Anthony Beltran is my partner, my best friend. He's event entertainment coordinator. So Anthony is someone like you that actually was a fentanyl user. Great story, overcame it. He's been putting on fentanyl awareness concerts in California, in Fullerton and now in Anaheim. And, like this is his niche, right? So if anyone's looking to maybe do an event or get some kind of insight like that, Anthony would love to be able to share how he does maybe his insight, or maybe even help try to find, because the concert's a great way to just bring people together, right? We listen to music, there's food, the recovery community's there, families affected there. We even got legislation now getting involved with it, and they're, showing their appreciation with letters of recognition and things of that nature. So like we're starting to bring it all together, but it's a good time, right? Singing, dancing, jokes, speakers. So if it's something you're looking into, on my Instagram, you can find Anthony, and you can see what it is, or just go to my page. You'll see the flyers for the event. He's doing great work. So, we're very proud of him, and, I'm honored to have him actually be my best friend. And I'm going to be his best man at his wedding, my first wedding ever at 39 years old because of drug addiction, right? I didn't go to weddings. I'm actually going to be his best man. So it's an honor, and I'd love for you guys to check him out as well.
And of course, the other organizations out there, so many of them support us, and from making graphics to banners to billboards, like Michael was saying, and just pooling all of our resources. All of these organizations work together and have so much to offer, and with prevention, and we just need to keep pushing along.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely put the links in, the direct links to all of your guys' socials and the websites. I'm going to start to wrap it up. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for everything that you guys do. You definitely make a difference every single day.
Thank you, Jared.
Thank you for having us, Jared.
Yep. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in with us today. Remember, we recover out loud for those suffering in silence. And until next time, peace.